1, and now we're here. Hey, happy holidays, Merry Grinchmas to y'all. Welcome back to another episode of MAST, Maritime Security Talk. I am your host, Chris Walski, and this is Season 2, Episode 10. Guys, we made it to 10 in 1 year.
Yay!
So,
Congratulations.
well, thanks. That was quite an effort, too. A lot of alcohol was drank, and especially when we were in Florida. That was, we took this on a road trip one day.
Oh my Lord.
So, yeah.
It was a good time in Florida. We got to do it again.
Yeah, but I'm not maritime anymore. I'm been excommunicated from the religion.
No, but you're a hacker type, so you can go hack the port.
Oh, I'm not gonna hack no port. I'm gonna defend the port.
Defend the port. That's right.
Oh yeah. Here we are, already getting on soapboxes. Before we get too far into the soapbox and weeds, I do have to say, these are our opinions, and during this recording, we express our opinions quite verbally, and sometimes not quite verbally, but they do not necessarily reflect our past, current, or future employers. So with that in mind, if you're watching on YouTube right now, which looks like we have all of 0, so that's good. Be sure to click the like and button, which is somewhere down there, and follow us because we're going to be doing more episodes next year, I hope. Besides, I've got a lot of bourbon to drink, and what better way of drinking it than with this group of people here? So speaking of group of people, so the rest of the crew here, but that person over there to my right, many of you probably recognize. She is the queen of cybersecurity. Her name is Dee Dee because nobody can pronounce her real name. So, Dee Dee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh goodness, thank you, Chris. Yeah, my
Welcome.
legal name is not that complicated. It is Katarina, but I think a lot of people mispronounce it, and I forget that that's my name. So I go by Dee Dee. Last name is Budi Harto. Tell me about yourself. I love bourbon, so that's how Chris and I connect really well. On top of that, I happen to be in cybersecurity, so I've had some CISO roles in the oil and gas companies. Angels Envy, I know you're bragging about that. For those of you, the other bourbon lovers, I am drinking Eagle Rare 10 years. Bragging.
Very nice.
Thank you. Yes. So, what else do you want to know about me? I live in Houston, and I've been doing cybersecurity for a long time, like you all, probably before even it was called cybersecurity. And I am currently serving as an independent businesswoman, president and CEO of CyberPoint Advisory, serving as a virtual CISO.
Nice.
So I hear there's an opening here in Houston that they might be able to use somebody like you. We won't mention the company, but Hey, look who's buying drinks tonight.
Woo!
Mike Z.
Mike Z. So Mike, since you're the last one in here, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike Z. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you, buddy.
We can hear you.
But, by the way, we're live and you're late.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I love you guys. I
Yeah.
had some last minute stuff popping up. I'm
that's
wearing the hats. I don't have one.
TMI.
That's what happened when you're the big man on campus now, man.
Oh, I don't know about all that.
GM.
Everybody wear hats, so I'll get wear a hat.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, my son's Navy hat.
Marco, where's your hat?
See, Marco, here's the thing. Marco still has a full head of hair, so he doesn't want to ruin it.
No,
I do.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is the very front piece of it. As soon as I turn around, you'll see it. There's not a lot there.
Ooh, nice,
I get it
Mike.
from my father's side. It's his fault.
My hat's down in my closet collecting dust. So
Very nice. Hey, Didi, so can you tell us a little bit about the CISO, like a virtual CISO, and how that works, and uh, how do you support your stakeholders and your customers?
Sure, yeah. So basically, as we all know that we are in the deficit for cybersecurity professionals, right? And then our small to mid-sized businesses are part of the supply chains, and they're not going to be able to compete hiring CISOs full time. And yet now with the SEC guidelines, recommendations that anyone in the market needs to have an enhanced cybersecurity posture, that so serving as their VCISO, meaning that they could use our services on a part-time level, still helping them developing their cybersecurity program, risk assessment, anything that their customers may require them to have. So that's the gist of it, Julio.
That is very interesting. I think it's very well needed as well. I couldn't disagree more with you. I think a lot of the topics that we have discussed over the last 2 years that we've been doing this, it's always, I guess everybody's as strong as their weakest link, right? And there's so many third parties involved and so many small businesses that don't necessarily have the funding, but they are connected to this larger organizations in the larger supply chain. So that's a very interesting concept. That very, very good. That we need more of it for sure. I think, guys,
Thank
you'll
you.
agree.
Thank you.
So I was curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Didi, it's great to meet you. Thanks for joining us. So, I think Chris may have let you know I work a lot with the Coast Guard, and that's kind of been my background. For a long time, there was a question of, the Coast Guard, we have experience of hiring out pollution contractors, pollution response companies. And some people see kind of a similarity of kind of services like you're looking at doing of contracted response work. Is that kind of, are there any business models you're looking at kind of comparing to as you're rolling this out?
What do you mean business model?
Well, like like with the pollution response companies, they get contracted. They're kind of on call, but then they also have to get they have to meet certain certifications. So I know you mentioned working with the SEC. Is there like certain qualifications you have to be able to work in that kind of contract role?
Not necessarily, because the qualifications I have is I am a CISO. I'm certified with the CISSP, CISA, CISM, and all that. Now the model is that I will not necessarily manage and operationalize or implement some of the programs, but I'm there to be the advisor. I can help them connect. For example, if they need an assessment of their current posture because their customers require it, it could be even a medium-sized law firms, right? They're dealing with a lot of larger customers, and I could help them with answering those assessment questions, where they need to be in terms of the maturity, take it to the level where they can be acceptable. But I'm not going to certify them, but I will help them get to where they need to be. And
So, I mean, for me, I would use somebody like Didi because, being the CISO at, a couple of organizations, and at the one I'm at now, I'm like, being in the chair, nobody in your organization believes you until you bring in somebody from outside. Says, oh yeah, Chris is a douchebag and he's really screwing it up. You should fire him. But nobody listens to me. So they need somebody like Didi to tell them that.
I've been there, Chris. So that's why now I'm switching sides.
It's kind of like your kids not listening to the parents, but they listen to everybody else. I mean, it's just a matter of the amount of exposure that you have to these folks. They grow accustomed to you, and then they don't see you as that subject matter professional that they hired initially. So now we got to go outside and have them tell you the same thing that you're telling them.
It is sad, but that just happens everywhere, right? Public and private sectors, cross-functional, any industry. So yeah, and I also, my service offering is to be that number two, to be the deputy. They may already have a CISO in place, but we can switch. I mean, you can divide and conquer. where the Syrian CISO can do that relational-based conversation with the business while I'm designing the program. Because as you all know, a lot of organizations are expecting CISOs to be everything, to be technical, to be business, to be a psychologist, to be procurement, you name it, right? Training team, developing team. They can't do all that. And
I think that's where I screwed up. I'm not a psychologist.
Everyone, I wish I had majored in psychology or taken some psychology classes.
I just
and
tell them to
sales.
suck it up.
I just tell them
I
to
thought
let me
all-
just drink to that.
I thought
There
all
you
Master Chiefs were part-time psychologists.
Yeah. yeah.
The feelings shits get
That's
filed.
definitely something they are not.
Who? You?
Well, me too.
Yeah. Well, at least I bring crayons to you.
Yes, I do get hungry sometimes.
Yes, you do.
Hey,
Come on,
so
Mark,
Is that-
say something.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, was it keto-based diet there? The crayons?
Crayons, yeah.
Keto, yeah, that's definitely keto.
Okay, Marco, you were gonna say something?
No, I was just going to say that, you know, when it comes down to this, that everything that you're discussing around what that CISO sounds like, it sounds like a very underpaid, underappreciated role. Yeah, it definitely sounds like, from training and all these other things, is how does one find the time to do it and be the throat to choke, or one of the first throats to choke at the very instance of a threat or a compromise.
Yeah, and there have been so many articles about CISO burnout. And unfortunately, I've also known some CISOs who have committed suicide. So I hate to say that. Yeah, the pressure is high. And
That's
so
amazing.
we need to work together on that.
That is, yeah, especially when it comes to mental health and burnout, that is something that people don't really, I guess, take time to think of. Wow, yeah. That's,
it's also, yeah, because you're constantly fighting two battles, right? You're fighting a battle against a cyber criminal or enemy of some sort, and 90% of the time you're fighting against your own organization trying to get things done. Trying to change culture, trying to change the perspective of the leadership, and everything else. And then in the end, you're kind of like the CISO from Uber, right? He kind of got stuck in between a hard place and a rock, and he now going to jail for the position he was in.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's why a lot of bourbon involved.
Yeah,
It's probably
being a CISO sounds a lot like being a real estate agent. Your best friend is bourbon and wine.
So is it?
let me
Go ahead, Julio. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to ask. I've met several CISOs, over the last few years, and a lot of times, like, their backgrounds are very, very different. So some of them come from that business side, some of them come from that technical side, and I've met some CISOs that they're not necessarily technical guys; they just look at strategy and policy. So, what do you think is the right mix for a CISO to be able to fill that role? Because, like you mentioned, Didi, so there's the leadership aspect of it, there's the business side of it, there's the technical side of it, and then there's the psychology part of it. I completely agree with you, but what do you think is the right mix?
Yeah, I always have the answer. Everyone's going to have different preferences and requirements. So I do believe leadership skills probably come to be number one, even though you may not have the technical background. But if you know how to lead and you know how to put together a technical team who can help you, then the second one is communication skill. Translating those technical terms to the business language, to the board, to communicate, to partner with your peers and so forth. And to me, those two are very important, because I've also been hired by organizations who complain that their incumbent CISO had been too technical. Because when you're so technical, sometimes you cannot, or you're not able to translate those difficult concepts into the business. What does it mean for business? So what? Answering the so what questions. So another passion I have is I want to bridge us practitioners with the next generation leaders, students at the university, or non-traditional students, people who've been in the field other than security but want to become a cybersecurity. I want to kind of show them, take a peek behind the curtain of this CISO world. It's not just technical, it's everything else that like we discussed before. Too much of just a business or one side without understanding the technical concepts and able to communicate that's not a good balance either. And too much technical, not either. It is a sweet spot, but every organization is going to have to find it differently.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I sit there and, it's a constant juggle, like Julio mentioned, it's like all those different hats, right? There's 4 different hats here on the show tonight. 5, I can't count, but it's a constant juggle. So what do I do today? What do I do tomorrow? What am I doing an hour from now? And you have to constantly be able to shift between the different hats. And it could be multiple times in a day that you go from the technical guy to the business guy, and at the same time trying to play psychologists and be that leader, but not only leader within the organization, but the leader of your team and protecting your team and taking care of your team. So because there's not only at the burnout level at the CISO, it's all below that CISO as well. And if you can afford to squeeze time off or send people to conferences just so they get away from office, it's one of those things that, it goes a long ways in retention, and part of the problem we have in InfoSec is, lack of people to fill the open roles. But, then the part of it is because we're sending a whole ton of people away from the industry just as fast as we're trying to attract people into it. So
retention,
retention is very difficult.
So. It's a scary role.
And and another thing that I've been hearing so much about, and I this is about CISOs where we in the trenches with, like you all are saying, with talking to different people, leading the team, fighting the bad guys, and you forget your own mental health and your own career. So you're not even doing your own career development. And I've been hearing so much for other CISOs who said, please make time for yourself, whether or not, you have a coach, an executive coach to help you just keep rebranding yourself, refreshing yourself, I should say, not rebranding. Because you get worn out doing all this hard job. You get called over the weekend, night, and all that. But so don't forget that, your own career development. Because at the end of the day, if you can't be good to yourself, you can't be good to others.
Very true.
I like that. That's well stated, well put.
Thank you.
So is there a challenge with? I'm curious. We face it on the federal side. We face the challenge of, okay, if we pay for some of these junior people, we pay for these people that are just coming in to get some of the training, some of the certifications. All we're doing is making them more eligible to leave and go get a different job. What's your response to that kind of attitude? It's kind of a battle that we fight from our perspective. I'm just curious how you've kind of fought that in your own ways.
Yes, it is a constant battle, and I believe in that relational based leadership, right? There's that risk of developing someone, later on they'll leave. But remember, people leave not because of the company, it's because of their leader. So if you could be that leader, they will tenfold and more be loyal to you and stick with you. And you have that continuous communication and everything else. I mean, there's still a risk of that. And many times, actually, I've been in an organization where my team was, one of my team members, for example, doing so well. And I wanted them to actually spread their wings because there was no more movement within the organization I was in. I would advise them to do that. And because of the loyalty, they actually refused to do it. They said they would like to continue working with me. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up because I feel like it's the responsibility of the leader to develop their people regardless. You know what I mean? Like it's as leaders, we have a responsibility to those that follow us to get them ready for that next step, regardless if that's with us or without us. You know what I mean? I mean, period. Yeah, it's development. I mean, yeah, we would love to keep them. Obviously, we would love to keep them, but if we have done our job as a leader, we have developed them to get ready for that next step. Good for them if they find something much better. You know what I mean? That's a compliment to us. We should not be afraid. We should not be afraid to develop them just because, oh my gosh, we're scared of losing this extra position. Because that gives us an opportunity to develop someone else as well. And now we're building a stronger workforce in general that's going to help us throughout. You know, I mean, let's face it, everything is connected, right? Because all we can once they move on to that better position, now that's an additional resource for us. It's an additional outlet. You know, we can reach out to them; they can reach out to us. You know, I mean, we're failing as leaders if we take that attitude, in my opinion.
Well said, Mike Z.
Well, thank you.
Cheers to that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well said. Very much.
Yeah.
Good job,
Yeah, no,
Marine.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what my approach has been, but it's just hard to find sometimes. So it's always refreshing to hear others that have that. Like I know the guys that here in the crew, we talk about it all the time. I think we all kind of believe the same way. So it's great to hear somebody as accomplished as you are recognize that as well, and see that value added on the other side, and how it can pay off. And I say too is even if you do turn that person down, it's not like they're sitting there and just accepting it. They're looking at their peers. They're looking at people that, they went to school with or they were in training programs with, and the opportunities that they're getting. And, that's not, they're going to see what they're getting and the benefits and how their leaders are taking care of them. And to me, it just makes them move quicker if you don't at least try to invest in them.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. When I usually enter into a new position, I have a succession planning immediately. I start looking at the talents because one, I don't want to be the single point of failure. Second, hi,
My friend.
strike a chord there, yeah. And then second is that career path for them. I don't want to be forever staying for an organization. Usually, my timeline is 3 to 5 years. 3 years probably is probably the sweet spot.
That's double the normal time
Yes.
that anybody's in this position.
Yeah.
Wait, you're coming up on that, aren't you?
Not in the current role. I've been where I'm at now. I've been at almost a year. So, but I mean, I've been doing. Yeah, it's February. It'll be 1 year. But I've been CISO now. This is my fourth time. Yeah, fourth time. Damn, I can't even remember. Fourth time in the chair, right? And so it's I'm a glutton for punishment for one, but but it's just like you said, Mike, earlier. It's just like and media is mentioning it's about raising up the next generation and helping them to fill your role and stuff like that. And for me, that's the most fulfilling part of the job, is helping them come along. The mentorship of my own team, getting them forward, mentorship of people outside. I've mentored a young Coast Guard officer here recently and gave him a little bit of view behind the curtain of the CISO. It's like, oh shit, there's not a lot going on behind. There's not a lot of magic. There's a lot of hard work going on behind that curtain. So, so helping that younger generation that's going to be filling the role when I'm sitting on a beach drinking more bourbon somewhere. But not Galveston Beach, but some other way, somewhere nicer.
What's wrong with Galveston?
But
I mean, that's that dirty third. Well,
So, but
I got a
I
question.
mean, how do we? Go ahead, Mike.
I got a question. So, and this is kind of, it's been kind of festering for a while, and the reason I say that is because like a lot of the conversations,
Hey, go to the doctor. We don't want.
not that kind of thing. But so a lot of the conversations that we have, and I get it because I've seen you in action, and I've seen a lot of the stress and all that good stuff. Are we getting to a point to where nobody wants to be a CISO anymore, because all the liability, all that first throat to choke, all of that kind of thing? Like, are we getting to that point? Because a lot of what I'm hearing, it sounds like we are. And if that's the case, like, where's the accountability, right?
No, literally, Mike. There's those of us that love to be, masochists, and we're just sweating for punishment. Just choke my throat a little harder next time. You didn't get me choked out this time. Next time you're gonna make
I'm
me
gonna leave
turn
that alone.
blue. But
Yes, and there have been some conversations that we wanted to push the government to have more protection towards CISOs, right?
That's what I'm getting.
Security, yeah. So there have been some discussions. So I used to be involved heavily in the American Petroleum Institute. I was actually a chair for the IT security committee. So I still hang out with some of those people. So yeah, there have been some discussions on that because otherwise, or a lot of organizations back to currently many CISOs are reporting to either a CIO or CTO, something in technology. Imagine that is a conflict of interest,
Yes.
right? Because the
Absolutely.
operational part, they want
Fox
to
watching the in-house.
exactly. They want to deliver and maintain to keep the lights on.
Yep.
And the CISO's main responsibility is to protect the assets and the whole company. And there's all that conflict. So we also, and I'm very outspoken about this. I've loved all the CIOs I've reported to, but I'm still pushing for CISOs to report to the either CEO, general counsel, chief risk officer at the business level. They have to have a seat at the C level, not just chief in the name only, but actually at the executive leadership level.
I'm glad you said that because actually Chris and I had a conversation probably a year and a half or so ago about that very subject. And in that, it is the fox watching the hen house. And so you should have that separation, right? So like, for example, Chris and I used to work together in the organization that we worked in. We both believed that it should have either been a completely separate thing or at minimum report to the CSO. At least that's how that organization was structured at that time, right? So, I'm a firm believer in that as well because you have to have that separation. You have to, because otherwise, like you said, you're getting directed to essentially, for lack of a better term, disregard certain issues that need to be addressed. Whereas
who wants to tattle on their boss, right?
Exactly. So if you're independent of that, you have that leeway, you have that authority to go ahead and say, no, this is wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm glad somebody else is of that mindset, especially somebody with your experience.
Oh, thank you. We need to continue that conversations and dialogue and keep carrying it forward.
Yeah.
And
Not
be
anymore.
outspoken in our social media, especially in LinkedIn, right? In those channels, on the cybersecurity channels. It has to be heard. It has to be seen. And something has to change. Otherwise, like you were saying, who wants to be a CISO? I mean, money at some point is you can't buy everything with money.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Especially considering, in my opinion, a lot of them are underpaid already.
Yeah.
So what do we do to attract new talent? I mean, they're going to have a gap, somewhere. You're going to have a bunch of people aging out or quitting, but we need to have somebody come in. So what are some of the best ways, DD, that you think that we can energize and bring the industry forward?
Oh, yeah, you mentioned it, mentorship, right? And ISSA actually has a formal mentorship program. I can connect you all with them. You can sign up, and then they'll schedule you with the mentees. So those are connecting students with the Lone Star College. I am connected well with Baylor University and Purdue University because I also appear as a guest lecturer or speaker and to connect with the students. Another thing that I'm doing, and it's in the works, I'm part of the Lean In Energy. I don't know whether you're familiar with Lean In, stood up by Sheryl Sandberg. She was the CEO at Meta, Facebook. She had that book and now organization for Lean In. This is focusing on women in energy. So I'm creating the university program for that, where they can have access to leaders from energy companies. So that's specific in energy and women, but little things, not little, things that y'all can do. That's another thing I want to quit corporate because I want to start giving back. We need to have the next generation leaders to in the pipeline, prepare them, and we don't want them to go to the darker side.
Dark
Because
side.
they are dark and darker side, where they get paid to hack, like mercenaries and all. We don't want them to be.
I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the people that were calling to try to sell me stuff.
So I have a question about that. Like developing that, and a lot of it's talked about at the the undergraduate level, starting at the colleges and things like that. But I know more and more now we're seeing programs start elementary, middle, high school. I mean, I have a senior in high school getting ready to graduate. I look at some of the course offerings. Even through the junior ROTC, they have a Cyber Patriot Challenge that they do. Different things like that. So. I'm just curious, like how you see balancing some of that very young workforce that we may have to attract, because just having such a huge gap like that, I mean, I think at some point you're going to have to say, all right, a college degree probably is not, a 4-year degree is not going to need to be a prerequisite. We need to get people in now. But then I would see there being a concern about that maturity level coming in that young and what you're providing access to and asking these people to do. How do you see that kind of balancing out and playing out as you see more of these programs? Is that focus on the youth just to try to get them more familiar and comfortable in this domain, or do you think that's actually going to be career paths that start out even before they go to college?
I love you asking that question. I'm also very I'm in many different conversation groups on starting to change job description for cybersecurity professionals, not requiring 4-year degree, right? We can start the high schoolers, for example, who are very passionate about this, and take them on as our trainee. Right, we can start mentoring and everything else. So there are many different ways of doing that, and my ask of you guys is just to continue the conversation. If you know some people who are interested, like I said, that's why I mentioned non-traditional students, meaning that they don't have to be a student. They may be already in a career, or even before entering into the career level, that they're very interested in cybersecurity. It's multi-dimensional, Nick, right? It's not just a one thing so we need people who talk from K to 12, getting this awareness, not just the cybersecurity hygiene awareness, but the career in cybersecurity field. And then we need people who talk at the university level, and then we need people who mentor the non-traditional students. So we need to divide and conquer, and that's why I like forums like this, because this is through the awareness connection. I always call it the pay it forward. I'm paying it forward because a lot of people have helped me to get where I've been here. So yeah.
So I think the other thing is that we don't just have to look at people that are doing IT or have interests in IT. There's a lot of people, and Marco's one of them, right? Very, very interested in the operational technology side, and the physical and cyber interconnection that Julio likes to go off of on
Convergence.
sometimes. Convergence, thank you. But
got you, bro.
Come on.
Got you.
But thanks, brother. But that's that. But I mean, and that's the thing. So having to be able to have somebody that is able to think cyber terms, but also in the terms of of, in case, you, DD, you came through oil and gas, right? And you understand that, and you probably had people that came and worked for you that maybe had that for your background. How do we convert them to the dark side of cyber and out of the field where they're managing PLCs and SCADA equipment and all that other stuff?
Back to the challenge is not the technology, right? It's the culture, the people at the leadership level. Some leaders, back to Julio's comment, the convergence, some leaders still do not want to converge OT, operational technology, and IT, because they have no trust with each other, because the OT usually is run by the business that says, oh, IT, you don't know how it's run in the field. So when I reach out to the field people who are managing the PLC interested in the cybersecurity, they have that, limitation that they cannot move to the good side. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's the culture that is slowly changing. This is not about just the doom and gloom, right? As our new generations are coming into the workforce, the generations like us, we are over half a century old. I'm assuming I am.
No comment.
We need to converge not just the OTIT but also the multi-generational workforce, right? Because they have different perspectives. They do believe in seeing this as one entity to protect critical assets versus just, oh, that's an IT issue, that's an OT issue. I don't have an answer, Chris, but it's again multi-dimensional. It's continuous discussion, continuous
Well, I mean,
pushing
Marco,
the envelope.
what do you think, Marco?
What do I think about?
How do we get your OT people out there into the cybersecurity realm?
Well, I think a lot of it comes through training and mentoring as well. But the biggest challenge is there's two schools of discipline, two schools of thought, right? The control system and automation purposes, and this isn't anything new, is it's different. Even though it is technology backed and based, confidentiality still is important, but it's not the first and foremost thing. It's safety. Safety trumps everything. So it's safety, reliability, integrity, and
Availability, right? Availability
right.
for sure.
And so a lot of that drives the fact that they're the systems that have mission critical must not fail needs in today's world compared to 30, 40 years ago are all fully digitized, right? And so we're doing a lot of complex equations. So if you ask any one major vendor, hey, I want all the security in your controllers, they're going to say, well, what do you want us to be? Do you want us to be a security company, or do you want us to be a process control company? Because doing both is very difficult, because now you're going to have a lot of overhead on the processing doing security functions. And so I've worked with a lot of vendors. I actually worked for a vendor, a large vendor, for a little bit as their application engineer. And so the trade-off is security is here. We need to be able to incorporate it, but it cannot impact the reliability and safety function. And so a lot of vendors, it's taking time. It's not like IT. IT is supposed to be the golden rule, right? The gold standard when it comes to security. And yet you look at yesterday's Patch Tuesday, and it's still that dog trying to catch its tail with patches, updates. We've got manufacturers even signing malware or signing malicious drivers and rolling these things out. And so when we start having discussions with OT saying, hey, you need to patch, it's like, well, we were more secure before Patch Tuesday than we were after Patch Tuesday. So those are the realities. And the other part of it too, and I agree, Dee, it's all about the approach and the mentoring and the training and everybody coming together for the actual company's mission purpose, right? To make.
Hey, what's up with you two? You two got guitars in the background. You guys gonna pick up and play, or we're gonna get a set here?
I've got a couple, but I'm sure she's better than me. No. So
that's a decoration.
And the other perspective too is, from IT, the security aspect is you've got to connect it to protect it or to monitor it. Where in the control system space, we tend to not want to connect things that are not traditionally connected. Connecting a safety system for visibility into a security event management system all the way down to L1 for the sake of security is not a traditional practice, right? And so those are the kind of handoffs, and it just comes down to collaboration. Knowing the CISO's role, understand that we're here to try to secure things and to get operations secure, and it's going to be a handoff, right? It's going to be a trade-off on trying to make that perfect balance. Because I've always said the most secure control system in the world is the one that doesn't exist, right? I mean, because that's just the world that we live in, right?
Because they were originally built to last.
Yeah.
Right. And hence the title I thought of this podcast, right, Chris? The OEM, the government, and the owner operators, the three-headed monster. Because the owner and operators now, especially with TSA, requiring us, the owner operators, to be compliant. Yet the OEM doesn't necessarily have the equipment, all the tools, the PLC, the SCADA, and everything else that are compatible with what the security requirements are. So there's not been a positive incentive for the OEM to get there. The carrots, the owners, operators usually are the ones who get to be required to meet the compliance. Which compliance doesn't necessarily mean secure, but at the same time, that's the gap. So the three-headed monster need to work together.
Yeah.
Can I back it up a little bit?
Yeah.
To the question about like attracting people over to the light side, if you will. I think it's also, at least in my opinion, I believe it's also a little bit of recognition of potential, right? There's a lot of folks out there that do show interest in getting into cybersecurity. They have some degree of experience in either OT or physical security or the business side, things like that, but yet they're overlooked because they don't have certain very specific experience, right? That experience can be gained. They can be taught, they can be developed, right? So if they're given a chance, if they're given an opportunity, and this goes back to developing people and developing your workforce, right? So if folks in the leadership positions recognize the potential that these folks have, give them that opportunity, develop them, train them, give them those responsibilities, I think we'd be a lot better off. I really do, because now you're not only increasing your workforce on the cybersecurity side, but you're gaining the additional perspective that they bring to the table. You know what I mean?
Yep. So I agree 150% with you, Mike Z. This is the vicious cycle, because I'm a believer of training from within, right? Like you said, people who have the passion, actually, they're more likely to last. They will not leave, and they will be loyal to you. Now, where is the bandwidth to train that? Because we are lean and mean nowadays.
You're absolutely
the organization. Right. So so I don't have an answer, but again, this is the continuous discussion in every speaking engagement I have. I usually bring this up because at some point we need to take the time to do that development.
Absolutely.
To me, the easiest thing is for that person to shadow whatever you're doing, whether or not in the cyber threat hunting process or incident response. And but it takes two to tango. I agree with you. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it does. But also, if you were to, in my opinion at least, if you were to give that individual the opportunity, they would take it upon themselves as well to take the guidance and do the additional work that is necessary to accomplish that training, right? So I'll give you, here's an example. I'll use myself as an example. I was given an opportunity many, many years ago to step into the role of facility security officer. I knew nothing of what that was. Nothing. For about 8 months straight, I did not leave the office till between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. reading regulations, digging into NAVIX, digging into the policy advisory council decisions, all of those things, because the potential in me was recognized, and I did not want to waste that.
Mhm.
So if the potential is recognized and you give those individuals the opportunity, they will take it upon themselves to seek out that training, seek out that research, ask the questions that need to be asked, shadow when need to be shadowed, right? Obviously, it takes a little bit of time,
Mhm.
but you're going to gain so much more if you simply recognize that potential in those individuals and give them that opportunity to shine, because they will not let you down. They will not let you down. Of course,
Yep.
there's always that 10%. We all know that, right? There's always that
Yeah.
10%.
Always,
But-
there's always.
But for the vast majority of it, if we recognize that, then they're going to take that opportunity. They're going to run with it. They're going to do their absolute best to make sure that whenever they walk into a room, they can understand what you're talking about and contribute to the conversation.
Yeah,
But if
I'm
we
one of
don't
them.
give
I
them
started
that
that way.
opportunity,
Yeah.
don't give them that opportunity, if we don't recognize that potential and that drive and that passion, then we are losing out.
Agree. So we
And I
should
think
make a
you're 100
pact. We should make
So make what?
a pact to commit to do training, mentoring, whatever we can. And I'm trying to look for interns to shadow me doing my VC
I'm down.
business. So
You can
okay.
swear.
Yeah. Put it in. Yep.
Put it in. Come on, everybody, put it in. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
That's what I'm
Oops.
talking. Marco,
Pinky
where you at?
Pinky
it
swear
in.
I'm
pact.
in.
There
Put
we
it
go.
down.
You got to put the pinky in. You got to put the pinky in, Marco. There we go.
There we go.
It is our responsibility. And we all care. So we need to do something about it.
Absolutely.
I got a question here, and shifting gears a little bit from the professional development and mentoring part of
Use the
it.
clutch, will you?
Chris, you okay, bro?
You know how many bottles of that stuff he's got to drink?
You might want to check your shorts there, man. I'm just saying.
My shorts are fine.
So looking at the threat environment these days, and looking at how we're in an environment where nation states are going after businesses and going after hurting the economy. And I guess before it's a little easier to protect a government that's all managed under one structure, but now with these foreign states going after companies, what do you think how do you see the collaboration between companies into sharing information, sharing intelligence, and I guess how important that is, that role of intelligence and sharing information comes into protecting the overall network and the overall economy in the
Well,
in
if
the United
CISA
States?
wouldn't spill the beans.
Oh man.
Thank you.
Well, no, but there's CISA. I mean, there's ISAC though, right? The information sharing, and what does it stand for? Analysis
Analysis center. Yep.
for the
It's
different
security twice
centers.
in the name. Yeah.
Say
If
it
So-
again.
CISA wouldn't spill the beans.
So no, Mike is just poking me in the ribs.
Both of y'all.
I have to tell you that story later, another time.
Yeah,
I mean, there's the ISACs and like you're talking about their DD, the ones that, like the ONG, ISAC, there's Marine Transportation System, ISAC. Those have definitely
financial.
become.
Water
Yep.
Isaac for Isaacs.
But before NG ISAC was formed, again, I've been doing this for a long time. I had again, these are opinions, right?
Yeah.
We had formed, several of us in the oil and gas, in the capacity of CISO. We kind of exchanged intel in the dark web of the indicator of compromises that we're seeing. Because if we had to go to the formal channel with the lawyers, it could never happen. Because many times the organizations are competitors, right? But as the cybersecurity professionals, we see beyond the competitiveness. We're protecting the whole critical assets of the country. So we used to do that. We developed the trust through this relationship base. Keep talking, keep exchanging, sharing. Then the ISAC was formed, so now everything is done through ISAC. But information sharing, it is very, very critical. The bad guys are all together to attack us. If we are not together to defend ourselves, we're at the losing side.
Who said it earlier? The weakest link. I mean,
I
if you're
did.
not,
I
you're not
think
sharing-
it's-
yeah, if you're not sharing information, if you're not looking for that information as well, that you're the weakest link, and you're the one that's vulnerable, and you're going to expose everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good point. It's
So I guess the question then becomes: if we wait for the government to fix that problem,
It won't
are
be.
we waiting too long?
Oh yeah, I can answer that real quick. Yes. I mean, let's just be real. I mean, government serves its purpose, obviously, but it just takes way too long to do anything. And at the speed of things right now, with cybersecurity especially, we cannot wait on the government. It has to be taken into the private sector hands. Has to, because otherwise we will not succeed.
Well, and
yeah.
and the reason I ask it is, and I don't know, Dee, if you saw this report, the GAO just published a report about Bessie and their look at cybersecurity offshore. So I don't know if you've seen that report.
I've not seen that.
So it just got released probably about a month ago. I think you probably pulled it up, but basically just saying there's a lot going on in the offshore community, a lot of potential risk when it comes to the cybersecurity and everything. And I'm not calling out another agency; it's a public report that's out there, but it basically says there needs to be some kind of policies, a little bit step up what they're doing in that realm. But my previous position, I worked a lot, and that's how I was introduced to Marco and some of the others in this group is through that and working with that community. And I recognized quickly during that time, there's already a lot being done from the private sector in that community because they do understand that risk and they've seen what can happen with, a catastrophic event. It doesn't have to be a cyber event, but when it happens in the offshore community, it quickly impacts everybody. So I'm just curious if you can, given your previous, world of work, just how much of that, do you think is going to, continue, even though there's more attention that's being drawn towards, maybe what some of those people are doing and talking to each other? Do you think that's going to be able to continue and to kind of evolve even without the, the government regulation or standards being put in there?
Yes, and so I used to have a secret clearance, and I would get invited to the classified briefing, and very high level, right? You're not able to bring anything to take notes or anything. You're relying on memories. So that's already. I mean, I know it's difficult to balance the act by the government if we all take notes and this classified briefing leak, but most of the time, usually after the classified briefing, the next day it's in the news. So it's almost like, hey, we're gonna give you a preview before we release it to the public. So, but that needs to change in terms of, like you had mentioned it, to accelerate that, right, Mike? It's I was working for one of oil and gas companies, and then I got a call from a three-letter agency saying that, hey, literally one piece of paper, physical piece of paper, the IP address, the source, and the activities, and then the dates, right? The dates that this had happened months before, but we just got notified now. So there's already have a conflict of interest where the agency wanted to keep watching these activities while we, the owner of the information, wanted to stop the bleeding. And we still have not found a step for us to say, hey, let's stop the bleeding, because they want to catch a perpetrator. I understand, but we have the responsibility to our shareholders to keep information safe. So we haven't even gotten in alignment in that sense, right? So that's one challenge too. And then this clearance level classified briefing, it becomes a lot more administrative work and not adding too much value. I don't know what the answer is.
That's not,
You just hit the
yeah,
nail on the head
we've
right
struggled
there.
with, yeah. We struggle with that. We just struggle with information sharing even before it got into cybersecurity. I mean, that's just, we've talked about this before in this forum, is that we had a challenge with this even after 9/11 with physical security intelligence, and we still struggle with that. And, it's just continued over into cybersecurity. So hopefully one day we'll figure it out, but who knows? We'll get there.
I think one thing that might help is instead of penalty based, do incentive based.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like seriously, because right now any reporting, any information sharing, and all that good stuff, like everything's penalty based, right?
Mhm.
Well, we should be rewarded for sharing information, obviously among trusted partners, right? It's all about building those relationships, And I've been an advocate of incentive based security for the most part, information sharing, whatever. But I've been an advocate of incentive based stuff for a long time versus penalty based. Because like let's say for example, I'm an MTSA regulated facility, and whether it be a physical or a cybersecurity incident that occurs, I report it because first of all, it's the right thing to do. Second of all, I'm legally required to do so. Well, next thing you know, I'm getting ridiculously scrutinized, even though I have followed my plan. I have done everything that I possibly could do. I've investigated everything. Of course, I have to address the incident and all that good stuff. And then next thing you know, I get this fine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's asinine. It's asinine is what it is. Instead of fining or issuing these administrative penalties or whatever it may be, or putting me under a microscope, why am I not being rewarded for actually reporting? Because there are so many facilities out there that just simply do not report because they will be penalized,
Yep.
because they are afraid of getting under the microscope and things like that. You know what I mean? Because they're afraid of the additional administrative burden. Instead of penalizing, celebrate. Celebrate the information sharing. Celebrate the fact that hey, we are working to be better. We are working with our peers. We are working with the government to try to be better and try to secure the overall system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mike, that struggle still exists even within information security.
Yeah.
One of the big programs that a lot of organizations have taken on is phishing tests. We send fishes to people, see who fails, but we don't reward those who actually do the reporting.
Exactly.
So and for me, one of my metrics that I report to my board is not the number of people that clicked on the link, but actually the number of people that reported it.
Yes.
And that means a lot more because it goes back to the 9/11, see something, say something.
Yes.
Right? I want people to say something. I want people to tell me that, oh hey Chris, I screwed up. I did click on the link, and not be penalized for it. But but at the same time, I have to also kind of figure out how am I going to penalize the people that did click on the link, did enter their credentials, and didn't say anything. Those types of things. So I mean, it's a tough rope that you have to
The
walk.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's back to psychology, right? It's to human behavior.
Yep.
And most people would respond better when they are rewarded versus penalized because it's now just fear based.
Well, and I think we could see that penalizing companies for having an attack doesn't really do anything better, because at the end of the day, on the business side of it, it's like, well, we can either spend a couple $1 million or $1 billion improving our system and improving our cybersecurity, or we can just wait and get hit, and it's going to cost a lot less to do that. So, I mean, I always makes me scratch my head, because I've heard it several times from so many different big companies where, we could make this investment or we can just hope for the best, and it'll probably be a softer blow at the end of the day, and that's not the right attitude to have. I think incentivizing people to be better, that's 100%. So agree with everything you guys just said, because the current format doesn't. I don't think it works. So
Agreed. And
So,
there's
hey, so Dee Dee, guys, sorry, but we're at the end of our hour.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
that
I
went
know.
I
quick.
feel like it.
Nobody had to get up, go to the bathroom, get a refill
Oh,
on
no,
a
I've been
drink.
holding
We
it.
just been too busy talking.
I've been holding it.
Yeah.
My eyeballs are floating. I'm seeing yellow right now.
So Dee Dee, any final thoughts?
Oh my gosh, final thoughts. I'm so honored you guys considered me to be your guest, and you've been doing this for 2 years, and you all have impressive credentials. And let's keep the conversations, the collaborations, the connectivity, right? And final thoughts, humankind. We all are humankind. Be both. Be human and be kind.
I like that.
Oh, that's
very
nice.
nice.
That's lovely.
That's very
Not
nice.
original, not original, but I like it.
I like
It
that.
fits with the season too.
Yep.
There we go.
There
So-
you go. Yeah.
Everything we just said in the last hour plus change are the opinions expressed by us and are not necessarily reflective of our current, past, future, or any other employer that could somehow be associated with us. With that, I appreciate everybody that has showed up. Thank you so much. And I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And if I don't see you, a Happy New Year before the new year.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays, everyone.
All right.
Safe and happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy